Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SoundCrab Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson Missing, available on Amazon, paperback and ebook, coming soon, Missing 2 by Mia Molson Zia, double the suspense, double the fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including 30 quizzes, bangs, and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist on Amazon, keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. And the latest from Eric Diamond, Sensei Swing with All of Me, featuring new music and more. EricDiamondMusic.com. Follow on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and more. We're here with a terrific lady who's an author who grew up in a small Illinois town, began gardening at 5, worked in advertising, selling college Pop-Tarts, Eggo waffles, cereals, and more, which is making us hungry at this time. Served on numerous boards and won multiple awards, and has a new book, or one of them features a teen piano prodigy seeking victory at Tchaikovsky Piano Competition in Moscow, listen to help of a world-renowned pianist, becoming mentor or teacher, falling in love, discovering if music will keep them together, and also another release about an Italian, two Italian sons, one woman, linked by a masterpiece painting put to the test of loyalty, friendship, honor, and more. Live, ladies and gentlemen, Plus Studios in beautiful downtown Chicago, the amazing, multi-talented Margaret Philbrick of A Mirror, A Novel of Love, Music and Memory, and House of Honor, The Heist of Caravaggio's Nativity. Ladies and gentlemen, multi-talented author, Margaret Philbrick. Margaret, morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to get to chat with you. You've done a lot of authors, so you know how to do it. You know what you're doing with authors. I appreciate that.
Correct, yes. And of course, my wife's an author. I've got some friends who are authors, and every day we write the book of life and everything. That's how I look at being authors. We write the book of life. So that's how I look at it. So anyway, you're an author who grew up in a small Illinois town, began gardening at 5. You worked in advertising, selling Kellogg's Pop-Tarts, Eggo waffles, and cereals. You served on numerous boards and won multiple awards. And one of your books features a teen piano prodigy seeking victory through Tchaikovsky piano competition, and it was where love and music really keep them together. You have another release about two Italian sons, one woman, linked by a masterpiece painting put to test of loyalty and honor. You have two books called A Minor, A Novel of Love, Music and Memory, and House of Honor, The Heist of Caravaggio's Nativity. So we'll talk about those two books simultaneously. Before getting on it, Margaret, tell us how you first got started.
Sure. I got started writing professionally in 2009 when my mom was driving in the car with me, and we were in my old hometown outside Chicago, which was Geneva, Illinois. That's where I grew up, the end of the West Line. And my mom and I were Christmas shopping, and we encountered a story that someone told us about. And that sort of set the two of us on a mission to find a nativity, ironically, a Christmas nativity that had been lost and was part of the tradition of this little town, that everyone would come to see it in a store which is very famous now. It's called the Little Traveler. And they had it in the store for years, for decades, and then it disappeared. And so my mom and I decided to kind of sleuth out what happened to it. And when we found out what happened to it, it was such an interesting story that my mom said to me, "Why don't we create a book about it?" And my mom was an oil painter. She was quite an accomplished painter. She said, "I'll do all the illustrations, I'll paint the paintings if you'll write the story, and we'll turn it into a kid's book." And
Nice.
so that was 2009, and I honestly couldn't believe my mom would do it. My mom, it was like the kind of person who sort of had a lot of dreams, but liked to live within a box of what she felt she was capable of doing. She didn't really love overextending herself creatively. She just liked to work in her own little range, and oil painting happened to be her range. And so she said, "I'm going to do all these oil paintings." Well, it turned out it took her a year to create, I think it was
Wow.
17 oil paintings for the book. And, I mean, the book is beautiful. It still sells all these years later, this will be its 16th year. And so that's how I got started. Really, my mom throwing that challenge to me of, "I think you should write this. I think we should do it together." And it was so much fun because she was young enough then and she could do the book tour, and we had a great time. I mean, to do a book with a family member, and as a collaboration is really satisfying because you don't know how it's going to go. It's a family member, and sometimes that's dicey. Sometimes it's like oh gosh, they're not holding up their end of the deal. What if this doesn't get done? But it did. And she did a great job, and it's a beautiful book. So that's how I got started. And then I was teaching writing and literature at the time. And so I really got into spending time in the classroom after I was done teaching during the day, spending time writing on my own work. The classroom was such a great setting because I had these giant whiteboards and I had a lot of space and it was quiet. And after everybody was cleared out, I always had like a good hour, hour and a half where I could work on my own writing. And then I would go home to our family and kids and, their lives. So I felt like, honestly, being in a classroom setting and teaching writing and literature motivated me to want to be creating more of my own works. And so that also, if you're teaching writing, you better be writing. I mean, you should be writing if you're teaching it.
That's a
So I just
given.
love
Yes,
doing that. I
every
did that
time.
for like 11 years.
Wow.
Yes, it
Okay.
helps, doesn't it, Mike? I mean, yeah, it
It does.
helps.
Yeah.
So, and then yeah, if you're teaching it, you've got to know something about it, right? It's kind of like when you are able to articulate an idea out loud, there is a level of confidence and internalization of the idea that you then are beginning to really get a hold of it. And I feel like teaching allows for that with writing, especially in literature. And I was teaching great books. I mean, I was teaching really just excellent books for young adults. And then when I went and moved to Wisconsin, I was teaching seventh and eighth graders, and I moved into teaching humanities to them. And I was so motivated by the books that we were doing and reading together, and it just really kept me focused on wanting to write my own books. And I love storytelling. I mean, who doesn't? It's fun to give a story to people, right? I mean, it's exciting. So yeah, I just kept going and this book, my most recent book, House of Honor, it is definitely my most I would say awarded book. It was on the Kirkus Top 100 Books of the Year of 2024. I'd never had that with any of my other books, kind of like that New York recognition where there's a thing that Kirkus does where books that are of exceptional quality, they get a Kirkus star. And this book got a Kirkus star, got a starred review. So this is just one of those progressing over time careers. And I think it's not really for the faint of heart. There's a lot of ups and downs in any creative career, right? There's books that don't get published that you really believed in, and some books that you think, wow, is anybody going to care about this? They really take off. So
I've
yeah,
had
you just
that
have to be
happen in
dedicated
anything.
to
Yes. Hmm.
the work. Yeah. Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. I mean, it happens.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's so interesting. I started today reading a book that many people have recommended to me. It's called The Alchemist. And it came out a long time ago. But in the opening of that book, the author, Paulo Coelho, he talks about how this book, when he wrote it and released it, it was a disaster. I mean, nobody bought it. This is down in Brazil. It was a book he said he wrote from his own soul, and it was a total failure. And the publisher dropped the contract, and he was devastated, but he really believed in the book. And eventually, after pounding the door of many publishers, he found somebody to pick it up again. And from then on, it slowly started building. And, I'd read that today and I thought, boy, that's the story of so many books where it takes word of mouth, it takes people to get behind them. But also, sometimes they just start out really slowly and it takes a while for them to build momentum. And his finally did. But I feel like, that's kind of the way it is in the arts, right? It's
Hmm.
very rare that something is just an immediate smashing success.
Hmm. I think that's a big problem today. It's like everybody expects an immediate smash, and once it gets to be a smash, it falls off the face of the earth. I mean, I grew up in an era where it's like, you start slow, built over time, and then you have a smash about two, three, five, even 10 years later or something like that. So,
Right. I think that's right. I think that there is, because of social media, uh, there's such a need for the immediate insta gratification. Immediate, it's just, it has to happen, or otherwise it's just considered a failure. It didn't go viral, or, however you want to describe it. And I mean, my husband always says good work comes to those who do good work. And so if you just really are staying in the lane of, I'm going to do this. And like this guy said, this book came out of my soul. My books, of course, do, or I wouldn't be spending all those years writing them. You believe in it and you're just going to keep after it. It's something that you're dedicated to and you just, because you love it, I think that eventually things catch. My son always says, if you throw enough darts at a dartboard, one of them is going to hit and you just keep throwing those darts. You just keep doing it.
And I think that's a really good point as well, too. I think we all need to keep in mind. And who are some of your favorite authors and writers in your favorite books growing up? Besides The Alchemist you wrote, who are some of your other favorite authors and books growing up?
Well, I love, I gotta say, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I read that book a couple years ago. It was a big book, and I was really taken with that book. I said in some blog I wrote that if I were on a desert island, I think I would have, if I could pick two books, I would pick the Bible and I would pick Anthony Doerr's book. That book, when I was young, my grade school had a special education class of blind and deaf kids.
Mm.
And they allowed me to be an assistant as a fifth grader in that classroom. And I had a little girl, her name was Eva Shukis, and she was blind. She had blue glass eyes. She was absolutely adorable. And she was like my favorite child. And in Anthony Doerr's book, the protagonist is blind, and her name is Marie. And so when I read this book, it took me back to those early formational years when I was really working with people, who were younger than me. She was little. She was like 5.
Oh, wow.
And I was sort of forced into a place. I wanted to do it, but also forced to grow up in a way. Like you have to offer help to this child and be her sort of guardian while she's at school. And that book, because of that blind protagonist, it really captivated me. I just was mesmerized by how he was able to capture a blind person's experience in World War II. So
Mm.
that's one of my favorites. I love yeah, YA books, young adult books. Linda Sue Park has been a pretty big mentor to me in my writing, as well as Matali Perkins. And I really believe their sort of work ethic, which is that, the better reader you are, the better writer you are. So, Linda Sue Park says you should read 1,000 books before you write your own. And I think there's a lot of truth to that because in the reading, that's where you develop your appetites and your ear for what kind of books do you like and what kind of books do you not, based upon the writing. I read Upton Sinclair's There Will Be Blood because my father, my whole life, was in the oil business. And it was this big hit and it was a famous movie. And I thought, well, I should read this because it'll connect me to my dad. Well, I absolutely hated that book. No offense, sorry, Upton Sinclair, but it was so heavily laden with detail that I found it really hard to get through. And so you really do through reading, I think, get to shape what it is that you like about a certain type of writing. I like, let's see, Milan Kundera is one of my favorites. Umberto Eco, Isabel Allende, Margaret Atwood, of course. I mean, there's just so many. It's always hard to nail it down, but I definitely have thought about this. And I really think Anthony Doerr's book, All the Light We Cannot See, I really think that would be within the past 5 years an absolute top favorite. But yeah, I'm excited about this Alchemist book that I just got today. I was in an independent bookstore in Chicago on Michigan Avenue. Highly recommend this bookstore. Oh my gosh, Exile in Bookville. Oh, it's phenomenal. And I picked this up because so many people have said to me, you've got to read it. So yeah, there's just so many great books. What about you? What would you be on a desert island with?
Well, I'd be out in a desert island with these two. I'm going to tell you more about that. Margaret, we'll get to your books and we'll talk about these books. But first, you're listening to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by SoundCloud Studios. Visit online at soundcrabstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800 1-800-303-3960. It's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show and one of my favorites, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those who love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon, a paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia's Garnet Great Reviews. An Evil Evan endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassie, Forrest Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today, for it goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Coming soon, Missing 2 by Mia Molson-Zia, soon to be one of my favorites, Margaret. Double the suspense, double the fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of King David and 30 exquisite pains in King David's Psalms. A Sweet Psalmist gives a new perspective of David through the Psalms he wrote. His time as a shepherd where it started, and complicate yet turbulent relationship with King Saul. Story of love, betrayal, repentance, hope, and more. Check out the Sweet Psalmist by Serena on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Also brought to you by Sensei Swaying Eric Diamond, featuring All of Me, the title track, I've Got No Heartache, Bring Me Sunshine and More. Eric's a multi-award winning artist, including numerous Hall of Fames. Entertainer Album of the Year. He'll be releasing a new CD soon. Check out the amazing Eric Diamond today, ericdiamondmusic.com. Follow on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and your favorite platform, and more. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com. 40 podcast platforms, 100 countries. Tickets with you on any mobile device for great gift ideas. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast, T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies. Makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Great books, merchandise, and more. Follow the Mike Wagner Show on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, also Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and more. And follow us on and support us on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. We're here with the amazing author who grew up in the small Illinois town of Geneva, Illinois, Margaret Philbrick, here on the Mike Wagner Show. And before we talk about a couple of books, those 2 are my favorites. It did keep me on edge as well, too. And I got to have a really good experience with King David as well, going through the Bible. I also liked, was it How to Win Friends, Influence People, Dale Carnegie, the Bible, and more. But soon to be your 2 favorites, Amir, A Novel of Love, Music and Memory, and of course, House of Art, the heist of Caravaggio's Nativity. But first, you began gardening at 5, so I'm going to just, kind of take you way back into gardening, maybe write a book about gardening or something like that.
Oh, that's so funny to say that, Mike, because I am working on a book about it right now. I am working on a nonfiction book. Every time I do a novel, I have to take a break and do either a kid's book or I aspire to do a book of poetry, but I have a lot of poems at my Instagram is at seasoned poetess, and all my poems and photography are there, but I haven't done it yet. But I do really want to do this book, and I'm about, I don't know, I'm probably 60 pages into it. And it's a book that is called Growing Home, to Work and to Keep. And it lays out the idea of growing a garden, and it's in sections. So the first section of the book is soil, and then there's plant, and it makes its way all the way through to harvest. And so the book has like parallelism going on between gardening and what it means to grow a home that is a garden. And what I did with this book is I interviewed a professional in each of those segments.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
so, so for example, in the harvest section, I interviewed a lady in Nashville, Tennessee, who runs a farm that she just out of nowhere decided to do. Like she never had been a farmer. And it's called By Faith Farms. And she grows tons of produce and she donates it to homeless shelters in Nashville.
Oh, nice.
And I just thought that was so cool that she just did this because she felt compelled and called to do it. And she had no experience. And so the book taps into other people's experiences as well as my own as a gardener and what it means to create a home that actually is like a garden. So I'm working on that. That's my current project. And I have a daughter who has identical twin baby boys who are one, and I have a daughter-in-law who has a single baby who's one. And so they're our first grandbabies, and it's been really fun to watch them try to deal with what it means to like have a house, have babies. It happened really quickly for these two, and it's kind of a shock. And so they inspired me to want to write this book because, I was a huge gardener. I mean, our home was on a garden walk in the community. And I mean, I was really into it. My mother got me into that too. My mother was she was just a great inspiration to me. And so I just felt like it'd be fun to look at that, and just that relationship between gardening and what it is to grow a garden over many decades, and then what it means to develop a home along those same ideas.
Hmm. And it sounds amazing too. What are some of your favorite plants or your favorite veggies to grow?
Oh, I love Swiss chard. So Swiss chard is so great to grow because it has all this color that happens when it gets established that really comes on in the fall. And so you have these red and yellow stems and then those giant leaves. And you can dice up those stems and they have a really nutty, almost nutty, buttery
Oh
flavor when you
wow.
saute them. And then adding that to a vegetable saute, it's so delicious because it's another really great high antioxidant vegetable, and it accomplishes in a vegetable dish basically what sauteed nuts would do for you.
Mm.
So Swiss chard is a big one for me in vegetables. And my main, my main area of growing things has always been flowers. Um, I never have done roses. My mom did roses. I think that's too challenging. But I've done a lot of perennial gardening. And late in my gardening life, I came across a plant I adore, which is called Star of Arkansas. And my father lived in Arkansas. He, like I said, was in oil and gas exploration. And so he was based out of Arkansas. And my dad was very much a kind of mythic kind of star figure in my life, but sadly, he was always gone. He was always traveling. He was always doing some amazing thing somewhere else. And so I felt like a lot of my childhood was like standing in the driveway waving goodbye to him as he was going off on his,
Mm.
next mission. So Star of Arkansas is like that's like my dad. It's a flower that reminds me of my dad. And the stars are blue. So I have on like this light blue scarf right now,
Oh, that's
and
very
they
nice. It
they're
matches
light
well.
blue.
Matches.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, it goes with the flower. So I love growing flowers. I mean, hydrangea, I'm a big hydrangea girl. I mean, I love it. So, yeah, so that's a fun book I'm working on right now. And ironically, I wrote a book over the last few months. It's a children's book that also has to do with flowers. So I've been on kind of a flower kick lately. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Hmm. And you talked about having your daughter or daughter-in-law, having kids of their own, grandkids. All of a sudden, you wrote a book called "Back to the Manger," and tell us more about that. I think it kind of parallels into having growing and everything like that. And your first book, tell us more about it.
Yeah, it parallels that. It also really parallels the novel that came out last summer, House of Honor, because it's very ironic. But in 2009, I wrote a kid's book that my mother illustrated. She did all the oil paintings for the book, and Back to the Manger is just this beautiful book about a missing nativity scene that was created actually in Italy back in the 1700s, and it was brought over to Geneva, Illinois by a lady. Her name was Kate Raftery, and she wanted to have it in her home. And then she would open her home during the holidays for people to come in and see it. And it was 45 figures, and they were all made out of terracotta and wood and wire. And I mean, they were spectacular, gorgeous silk clothing, the whole deal, like Italian Renaissance over the top, beautiful post Renaissance, but that's the idea. And so I grew up going to see this because I grew up in Geneva. I love this. I would always go see it with my family at Christmas. And then when I took my own kids to see it when they were young, it was gone. It was not there. We couldn't find it anywhere. And so we just went on a search for it. And when my mom and I found out what really happened to it, it was such a dramatic story. That's why she said to me, "We have to make a book about this." So that Missing Nativity book is still selling all these years later. And then I end up writing this novel, House of Honor, about Caravaggio's nativity. And it's a true story in the sense, not the book is a fictional account, it's a novel, but he painted Caravaggio painted two nativity paintings. And one of them was cut out of the frame with a box cutter on October 17th, 1969.
Oh
And
my.
it was taken out of an oratorio, kind of like a church. It was stolen. It's never been recovered. And it's one of the top five unsolved art heists in the world. And so it's a long time ago. It's over 50 years ago. And so I found this out when I was in Italy. I mean, obviously, with a mother who's a painter, I've spent a lot of time in museums. And so I'm in Italy, and I didn't really know that much about Caravaggio at the time. My mom was an impressionist style painter, and he's a realism, naturalism kind of painter. So I just bought a book about his life when I was there. And that's when I learned about this painting being stolen. And so that kind of set me on just like a big question mark trail of sleuthing out what happened to that nativity. Like, why are what? It's so funny that they're both missing nativity stories. One's for kids
Oh
and
yeah,
one's for
Nativity, the
adults.
painting, and of
But
course,
the car,
some of the top five heists or even jewel heists. I think about saying what really happened to this diamond, what really happened to this. Everything seems to be coming together. It's like what really happened, what if, maybe tied in, who knows?
I know it's funny. Um, Yeah, that's so interesting because the one in the kids' book that was made in the 1700s, and Caravaggio painted his nativity in it was like around 1610. So his is first. And the publisher of this book did an amazing thing. They put 17 reproductions of his art, his actual paintings in the
Oh,
book.
can you bring up a
And
bit
so
closer for
the
our viewers? Bring up a bit closer. Oh my goodness. That is, was it 1196? 1596? I can't see what it is. Was it 1596?
1596.
That's what I thought.
1596
Okay.
was that painting I showed you. Yeah. And then the Nativity itself that was taken, it's called the Adoration of the Shepherds with St. Lawrence and St. Francis. This was painted right before he died. This is the one that was stolen. So that was 1609.
Oh my goodness.
It's a very large painting. It's 5 meters by 10 meters. It's very big. And so to get in a church in the middle of the night and climb up on who knows what, it would be very high up. I don't really know how they did it, but they had a box cutter and they cut it out. And there was a rug that was stolen on the same night in the town in the rug shop. And they think that they rolled the painting up in the rug to protect it and to get it out of there. And so that's really all we know. I mean, we don't, there's a lot of mystery around it. Lots of mafia people have testified in court about seeing it, or they knew who did it, or they knew someone who was involved, or it's up with a Swiss private art dealer. It was eaten by rats and mice. There's a zillion stories about what happened to this painting. Nobody knows.
Mhm.
So I just thought, well, it'd be fun to research this idea and see if I can figure out my own theory about what happened to it. Well, of course I did. And so that's what made me write the book about it. Because,
Mhm.
yeah, it's fascinating. It's like, why do these things, why are they being taken and what is the point? What's the point, right? I mean, what are you going to do? You can't sell this. You can't sell a painting like this. I mean, maybe you can on the black market, but, you don't want it ever to be traced, when you've taken something like this. So yeah, so it was a really fun book to create. And I did this cool thing too where I researched Caravaggio's life because like I said, I didn't know much about him. And I researched his life and I loved his life. He was such a wild person. Had a lot of tragedy in his life. He lost all his male relatives to the Black Plague when he was very young. And so I decided, well, I'll create his journal entries. I'll just make them up because he didn't write anything down. And then the publisher came up with the idea of putting the journal entries on like parchment paper.
Oh,
So
nice.
they really look like they're very old. And then, a lot of them go with the paintings that he's talking about. And he was so rejected by the Catholic Church. I mean, he was really controversial and he caused a lot of problems. And so he's the model. His life is the model for the main character in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And how do you think Caravaggio got attracted by the Sicilian mob or Sicilian mafia as well, too, in pursuit of the painting? Was it his personality, or was there something about Caravaggio that attracted the attention of the Sicilian mafia?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. He has in our current day, so like contemporary times, we'll call that, even back at the time the painting was taken, 1969, all the way up until right now, he is he's really known as like the bad boy of the Renaissance. He killed a man and he got banished from Rome for doing it. He was just a wild drug user, drinker, partier. So a lot of people think he was bisexual. He was just wild. And so I think that the illicit nature of Caravaggio, coupled with the brilliance of who he was as an artist, it really attracts people. And last year there was an amazing Netflix series on. It was in the spring of last year, and of course we watched it because this book was just about to come out. And it's a book. It's actually based on a book which is really old. It's from the 1950s, but that's the Ripley's Believe It or Not. Ripley's Believe It or Not. Well, Tom Ripley is a con artist in Patricia Highsmith's novel. And so this guy in LA decided to make a contemporary new version, shot it all in black and white, on all about Tom Ripley. And he's a murderer in the show. It's really shocking. It's quite an amazing show. It's beautifully done. But he is obsessed with Caravaggio. And so the person who wrote the script, he wrote Caravaggio into every episode. So Tom Ripley goes into museums in each episode and sees Caravaggio's paintings. And he has this really kind of sick and twisted relationship with his paintings. One of them is David and Goliath. And so Caravaggio painted his self-portrait of him holding the severed head of Goliath. So it's David as a young boy. And then there he is, his self-portrait of him with just blood and guts just gushing out of his neck. And I think that very irreverent, wild, bad boy, killed a man, that all of that, I can see how that would really be iconic for the mafia. I mean, it does very much, it's very consistent with how they live. And I think that there's also a thought there that he's forever popular. He never will die out as a subject that people are interested in recreating. So it's a prestige. You steal Caravaggio's painting, it's in a mafia family's home. That's a big deal. Nobody knows. The secret is still kept, and somebody's got it. So I definitely think the painting still exists. I do not accept the theories that, oh, it was cut up in 500 pieces. No, no, it's too valuable. I think somebody has it.
Mm-hmm. And I think something valuable as well too, having a love affair of paintings, but a love affair of music, a love affair of a teacher, and a love affair of a miner, a novel of love, music, and memory. We'll get to that with Margaret Philbrick. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of The Mike Wagner Show, international award-winning author Mia Milton's Missing. The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, now on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Make sure you check out on Amazon. Also brought by Sensei Swing, Eric Diamond with All of Me, featuring new music, more, eric.music.com. We'll be back with you. Meltdown author Margaret Philbrick after this time out. We're back with author Margaret Philbrick of The Mike Wagner Show. We talked about House of Honor, the heist of Caravaggio's Nativity, and of course, going from one extreme to another. You have a book that's out, which came before Caravaggio, which is A Minor, a novel of love, music, and memory. And tell us more about that one, especially when there's competition involved. You got to win, you got to win, you got to win. And comes with a price, of course.
Yeah, that's right. Of course. Yes, it does. That's right. So this book started because our oldest son is a very accomplished pianist, and I, as his mother, was asked to sit in his piano lessons and take notes in a notebook. And then during the week, in between lessons, go over and review the notes with him to help him reinforce what he was learning in these lessons. Well, when he went off to college at Indiana University, I had all these notebooks of this great information about the piano and what it is to study the pianists and really, devoted to it, right? And I thought to myself, boy, this would be so interesting to use in a book in some way. And then the news came out that people who are suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia, when you put together a playlist for them of music that they listened to when they were young, that they would recognize, their brains have a way of connecting, like, think about it as neurons and synapses reaching out and dendrites reaching out for each other and like pulsing. So when someone has amyloid plaques building up in their brain, those 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 connections, they ball up and they become like tumbleweeds, and they can't really do that anymore, and that's why they start forgetting everything and eventually they lose who they are. It's terrible. But with music, they have studied this, and they've, put electrodes all over people's brains who have it. And they see that even the most balled up bunches of dendrites and neurons, they pulse and they try to reach out and connect. And it happens particularly when it's music they recognize, and it happens even more so when it's music they can sing. And so
Hmm.
this news came out, and I was like, wow, that would be fun to write a book about that, and have it be a love story, and have it, because my son's young. My son was 18 when he went to college there. And I thought, oh, well, that'd be so fascinating because he revered his piano teacher. What if the character in the book, this young man, Clive Serkin, is a prodigy and he's on his way to the Tchaikovsky piano competition and he falls in love with his teacher? Of course, her job is to get him there and for him to win. And then she contracts early onset dementia, and so that's what happens. And the story is about how music, well, the question is the music enough for them to navigate a relationship on when he is ascending to the heights of his career and she is declining? And it really raises that question of, is art enough for us?
Hmm.
Um, you know, there's a lot there. I mean, there's this notion, right, that, you know, life is short, art is long. I mean, we look at these pieces of Caravaggio's that I'm showing you, and they're from the late, 1500s, early 1600s, and they're more famous than ever. I mean, I'm going to Rome May 1st because the largest exhibit of Caravaggio's paintings in history, ever shown, is on show in Rome right now, and I'm going to see it. And so art is long. I mean, art lives on long after we are all gone. And it's why, why, right? Why does that happen? And so the book A minor, it's called A minor because that was my son's favorite musical key, as well as the boy in the story is 18. And so Clive Serkin is A minor. And so it's a double entendre. It's a play on words, with the
Got
title,
it.
but
Okay. I
it
was
is a
like,
love
what
story.
was that? Now I got it. Okay. A minor, A minor,
A
A minor, A
minor,
minor. Yes,
A
I got it.
minor. Oh, Mike, a lot of people do that. A lot of people make that mistake. So no worries, no worries at all.
Hmm.
No.
You know what? This
Yeah.
just came to mind as well, too. You talk about Caravaggio and his influences and everything. We talk about music and all that. What do you suppose that Caravaggio listened to back in the day? Of course, you had your Beethovens, you had your Bachs, you had Schubert and everything like that. What music do you suppose or his favorite classical artists that Caravaggio listened to?
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
think
it's a
it's
little
a little.
further back than Beethoven. Beethoven's like the 1700s. So he would have been in the Vivaldi classical, really classical. Before, Beethoven is known as the composer that bridged the gap between the classical and the romantics. And once you get into the romantics, you get into the big Mahler and these big. He's more contemporary, but the big romantic sounds. And I think Vivaldi, would have been popular for him. Handel, Haydn, Sinfonietta, smaller string, like quartets, quintets, those kinds of things. Like when we listen to Vivaldi's Four Seasons, I mean, that kind of music that was court music or Vatican choral music was really, really
Hmm.
popular. There's quite a bit of music in House of Honor. The Palestrinas, there's a number of Palestrinas and things that were sung by the Vatican choir boys. They're still being sung today. So yeah, I think he was into like a pretty wide range of that kind of music.
It makes me think of Mozart as well too. But that's probably about the time of Beethoven.
Yeah, Beethoven was the 1700s. I think he was like 1740, 1770. So this is a little before that. So we're still in the classical, but yeah, Mozart, sure, definitely.
Hmm. It made me think of it as well too, because a lot of especially in the classic rock genre, have all been influenced by Mozart. If Mozart were alive today, he would outsold Led Zeppelin. You think about her, Metallica.
Oh, I'm sure he does. He probably still does. He probably still, I don't know about Metallica. I don't know about them. I mean, but Metallica's still touring. It's like if you're still touring, you're still in the game, you're still doing it, people are paying attention. They're still coming to your shows. And I mean, Led Zeppelin's done. So, I mean, no offense to them. I love, of course, Led Zeppelin, who didn't. But yeah, I think the fact that Metallica's still going strong, that's pretty impressive because they're all really old. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what was considered contemporary and in Caravaggio's time. I mean, maybe opera, Verdi, maybe those big operatic works. Those were like considered contemporary works of the day. So, yeah, there's a lullaby in House of Honor that's really famous in Italy. And there's a scene in the book where Orazio is on the run. He's about to get killed and he's on the run down this really narrow street in Palermo. And his two bodyguards jump into a garbage dumpster to avoid getting shot. And they leave him in the street, and he runs up the stairs of this building into an apartment on the top floor. And he goes into the apartment to escape these people. And in it, there's a mom, and she's singing to her baby, Fila Nina, Fila Nana. And it's a very famous Italian little baby nursery rhyme kind of song.
Hmm.
So yeah, I can't resist. I mean, I love music. I always have to put music and art together. I mean, they have to be together. They just
Hmm.
they are.
And you do
Yeah.
a great job as well too. Where can we find all your books at, including the latest, Margaret?
Um, so this Saturday is Independent Bookstore Day. It's once a year. And we really are trying to keep our independent bookstores alive. Like I was talking about earlier, Exile in Bookville, this incredible bookstore on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. And so I would say, because of us talking right now before that big day, I think that going into an independent bookstore, and if they don't have it, they will order it for you, asking them to get it so they get the credit for that sale, rather than getting it on Amazon. Of course, it's on Amazon, and of course, it sells there. But Saturday is the day where independent bookstores really want to make up for, what Amazon is doing to them. And
Hmm.
it helps them. It's working pretty well. If you have to buy it online to do that, there's a website called bookshop.org. And if you go to bookshop.org, they put you through to your closest independent bookstore to where you live, and you can order the book from there. You're in Nebraska. Isn't that what you told me? I think you're in Nebraska. So if
Well,
you went to bookshop.org, they'll get the book for you from an independent bookstore. And so, given that this is the big week for them to make a big amount of sales, I'm saying let's get it that way. Bookshop.org, or walk into an independent bookstore in your town, and if they don't have it, which they should, but if they don't, they can order it because Ingram is the distributor and they distribute books everywhere. So you can get that way. A Minor is only on Amazon. It is not anywhere else because it just came out as an audiobook. It just released as an audiobook in March, and I'm really excited about this audiobook. Honestly, Mike, it's cool. The actual music that the story talks about is embedded into the book. So when you buy the audiobook, there's probably 20 different pieces of music that undergird the story. So while the narrator, Adam Blanford, he's an award-winning narrator, he's awesome. He does all the Russian accents, he does all of it. But while he's narrating the book, when he mentions a piece, then all of a sudden underneath the piece is playing. So you actually are interacting with the music that the story is about.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked really hard to get that in there. That took me, I spent most of January, February, and maybe a week or two in March going through all this music and selecting where is the start and where is the stopping point for the music to fit the text properly. So that consumed a lot of my early part of the winter. So that just came out and it's through Audible, which means they're the only ones that have it. It's an exclusive distribution. So A Minor, the audiobook with the embedded music is through Amazon.
And how about your website? How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, my website is margaretphilbrick.com.
All
And
right.
I have the buttons on my website to order the books as well. Yeah, I have bookshop.org on my website and all the awards the books have won are on there. And, it's just my blog is on there, my poetry's on there, my photography's on there. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on there. So
All
yeah,
right.
margaretphilbrick.com. That's it.
We'll certainly check that out. Once again, with the multi-talent author Margaret Philbrick of A. Myra, Novel of Love, Music of Memory, and also House of Honor on the Mike Wagner Show. Margaret, just a few more things. What else can we expect from you 2025 and beyond?
Well, hopefully I will have this kid's book that will come out. I'm hoping next. I think that's likely the next one.
Uh-huh.
It's a really neat book. I'm trying to get my cousin, who is also a fantastic artist, to do the illustrations for that book. And so she hasn't agreed yet. So that probably will be the next thing. And then I then would after that release the nonfiction book, Growing Home. That would be after that. And then I'll do a novel for our daughter. Our daughter, my first book is the A Minor is dedicated to the classical pianist's son. His name is Caleb. And then this House of Honor book is dedicated to our other son, Nathaniel. And then our daughter is a professional dancer and she lives in St. Louis and she's danced her entire life. And she
Nice.
loves it, but she is going to retire because of her twin babies. So her retirement is June 1st. And so I owe it to her to have the next novel be about dance. And she grew up in ballet. And so I'm really thinking of doing a ballet-based story, which would be a mystery. It's going to be a mystery and it's going to involve a couple.
Okay.
So a male and a female, because my protagonists end up being men. For some reason, I like writing about male protagonists. So I want to do a couple. So I think I'll do a dance novel next. So that's kind of the
Okay.
lineup of what's coming.
All right. We'll certainly check that out. Look forward to it. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
In the back of this book is dedicated to my favorite writing professor in college, and her name is Dr. Colleen Grissom. I went to college in San Antonio, Texas, and just as this book was coming out, she died. And it
Oh,
was really sad because she was dying to get a copy of it. She was so excited to have a signed copy of it. She was so excited to read it. I just loved her. She was an immense influence on me as a writer in those early years of college. And I said in the end of this dedication to her, I said, your legacy lives on in the words of your students, their students, and your own. Rest assured, in this latest book, I've tried to, and this is a quote of hers, eschew obfuscation, embrace simplicity, lucidity, and euphony. I'm forever grateful to you, dear mentor and friend. So definitely Dr. Grissom was my biggest influence for sure.
Definitely very nice. I really like that. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
About writing or
Anything in
about
general.
what?
In general.
Any kind of advice?
In general. Uh-huh.
Um, in general, I think that I would say my best advice right now is I would say to people, look up. Being in Chicago, I just am so appalled by how many people live and move and walk and go to the train and get in the Uber. They never look up. They're staring at their phone. They're looking at their hand and their phone, and their entire world is in this tiny little box. And they are
Mm.
missing everything that is live, that is going on, which is so beautiful every moment of every day. It's actually tragic. I find it very tragic. And so I think my advice right now is look up.
I think that's great advice indeed as well. Once again, with author Margaret Philbrick of A Minor, a novel of love, music, and memory, also House of Honor on the Mike Wagner Show. Margaret, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot. Looking forward to having soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. Once again, what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your books?
Okay, my website is Margaret Philbrick, PHILBRICK.com. And you can get my books off the website. I'm suggesting this week bookshop.org so that they come from a local independent bookstore. Walk into your bookstore, ask them to order it if it's not there. And for A minor, it is the one on audiobook with the embedded music, and that has to come from Amazon.
Okay, we'll certainly check those out. Once again, Margaret, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. We wish all best. And Margaret, you definitely have a great future ahead.
Oh, thank you so much, Mike. And I really appreciate you with all your great questions. Thank you for having me. Such a joy. Appreciate you. Thank you.